僕の名前はアストルフォ。
Pokemon Ash Gray is a ROM hack of Fire Red that tries to make the game as close to the anime as it can. There are overleveled fights that can easily defeat you, and parts you basically have to grind at. This made me think, can you beat Pokemon Ash Gray with Nuzlocke rules? So what are the rules? The first rule is that we can only catch the first Pokemon we encounter on each route. There are two exceptions to this, Dupe's Claws and Static Claws. The first is that if the encounter is of the same evolutionary line as one we already own, we can run and find a different Pokemon. This is for variety's sake. Static Clause is that if there's a static encounter or a gift, it doesn't count towards the route. Rule 2 is that if a Pokemon faints, it is considered dead and must be permanently deposited in the box. Rule 3 is that all Pokemon must be nicknamed. Professor Oak introduces us to our gross sprite and Gary's red face, and we're thrown into our bedroom. We go to sleep and wake up late, and the only Pokemon left is Pikachu. We set off to Route 1 and get attacked by our first encounter, Spearow. Ho-Oh flew 10 feet above us and we made it to Viridian City. On Route 16, my encounter was Rattata, but I knocked it out. I then went to the Viridian City Pokemon Center to heal up, and Team Rocket attacked. They led with Ekans, which I took out with 3 Thunder Shocks. When they sent out Coughing, he did a bunch of damage to Pikachu because of Ekans' Leer, so I switched to Spearow and the game bugged out a little bit. After going into the bag, it went back to normal though. Spearow took out Coughing, and we defeated our first Team Rocket fight. In Viridian Forest, there are 2 static encounters. The first is Caterpie. Our non-static encounter is Weedle. Before getting the second static encounter, we get our first death from a crit-happy Pidgey. It sucks that Caterpie died because Butterfree with Sleep Powder and Compound Eyes is actually really good. I deposited Caterpie and started the first of many grinding sessions. I got all my Pokemon up to level 6. Now we get our second static encounter, Pidgeotto. This is a really good Pokemon to have. I catch it with my last Pokeball. Team Rocket attacks again and we have our first double battle. With the help of all our Pokemon, we win. The next fight is against the Samurai, who has a Pinsir. I've been leveling up Pidgeotto so he can deal with it. His second Pokemon is Metapod, which is no challenge. After the fight, Weedle evolves into Kakuna. Then a Beedrill swarm appears, which turns all the encounters into Beedrill. I take advantage of this to raise all my Pokemon to level 10, evolving Kakuna into Beedrill. From Switch Training, we got Pidgeotto up to level 16. Now it's time for the first gym fight, which is going to be tough. In this game, Electric has been changed to be not very effective against ground, so I led with Pikachu and used Thunder Wave on his Onix. Then I switched to Pidgeotto. I tried Tackle, which barely does anything. Onix has Rock Throw and Screech, so I eventually decide I should just Sand Attack it a bunch. Thanks to misses and paralysis, we take out the Onix. After that, Brock acts like we lost and won't give us the badge. This is because we were actually supposed to lose that fight and come back. An old man gives us a Light Orb, and we can fight Brock again. This time he has Geodude. I lead with Pikachu again and Thunder Wave it, and take it down to half after a few Thunder Shocks. Then I switch to Pidgeotto and beat him without taking damage. After defeating Geodude, we go into another battle where he has Onix. I use 6 Sand Attacks with Pidgeotto and Potion Up when his health gets too low. This trivializes the fight and we get our first badge. On Route 3, my encounter is Nidoran Male. Nice! I then get a static encounter to catch a Zubat that's attacking this guy. Inside Mount Moon, our encounter is Paris. There was a Ruins Maniac that led with a Diglett when I had Pikachu up first, and I thought it was over for him. But luckily, it didn't have Arena Trap, so I could switch out. On Route 4, my encounter was Ekans. Before fighting Misty, I leveled everyone up to 20. Why? Because you can't use Pikachu against her, it forces you to deposit him. I led with Nidorino against Staryu and double kicked it down. Then I switched to Pidgeotto, which was level 24 because of Switch Training. The high level allowed him to tank what the Starmie had to throw at him. After defeating Team Rocket again, I decided to go south for now and skip Route 24. On Route 5, I found a Meowth as my encounter. I then went into the Hidden Forest and caught an Oddish and a static Bulbasaur. I immediately put the Bulbasaur on my team. Then I got a static Charmander, which I'm not going to use. Like in the anime, it won't obey you once it becomes a Charmeleon. Then I had to go through a cave and Bulbasaur evolved into Ivysaur. I got Pikachu taken from me, and when I got him back I also got a Squirtle. He's going in the party. Outside Bill's house I caught Krabby and remembered Route 24. There I found Abra. I was leading with Pikachu, so I Thunder Waved it and it couldn't attack. Then I balled it and caught it. Lucky! There were tons of trainers on that route, so Squirtle and Abra both evolved. I also used a Moonstone to evolve Nidorino into Nidoking. On Route 25, I old rotted and got a Magikarp. There's a trainer, AJ, who wants to start his own gym. He has an overleveled Sandshrew, so I used Pidgeotto. It had a rollout, which caught me off guard. If not for Sand Attack, he would have knocked out Pidgeotto and swept my whole team. Now before fighting Lieutenant Surge, I'm going on a big grinding spree. The Versus Seeker in Vermilion City will help with that from now on. I got everyone to level 30, which is a huge jump, but it's going to be necessary. Surge has a level 25 Raichu, which isn't necessarily what I did the grind for, but it's good I did. I led with Ivysaur and Raichu Mega Kicked him. I Sleep Powdered and switched to Nidoking to Horn Attack him down. The reason I didn't just lead with Nido is because I think his Raichu has Surf. Now, the reason I grinded is because there are tough fights coming up, and there's a point of no return for a while. When we board the SSN, it actually leaves the port, which is cool. While fighting the trainers, Kadabra evolved into Alakazam. The evolution is based on friendship in this game. Team Rocket appears and sinks the ship. After we escape, a Gyarados attacks. I just ran from it because I didn't want to risk losing anyone. A thrashing Gyarados should not be taken lightly. If I want to use Gyarados later, I can just train up Magikarp. We take the boat to Porta Vista, where we have to beat a giant Tentacruel. I don't think you can run from it, and it's very strong. It has Sludge Bomb, Hydro Pump, Hydro Cannon, and Toxic. In an older version of the game, it was actually catchable, which was easier than beating it, funnily enough. But you can't do that anymore. I led with Wartortle and tried biting it. There's a physical special split in this game, so I thought it would do decent damage. It didn't. I got Hydro Cannoned, and you still can't buy Super Potions at this point for some godforsaken reason. So I switched to Ivysaur and got a Sleep Powder off. His Sludge Bomb did major damage, so I switched into Pikachu. I used Thunderbolt, which did some decent damage, but unfortunately Tentacruel woke up on the first turn. I knew whoever I switched into would just go down in 1 or 2 hits, so I hoped Pika could tank a Sludge Bomb. Thunderbolt took Tentacruel down to red, and Pikachu could take a Sludge Bomb, but the Toxic he got off earlier did him in. I sent out Alakazam hoping to outspeed, but did not. But he miraculously survived a Hydro Cannon. I Psybeamed and took down the beast. I put Zubat into my party and had to move on to Saffron City because there was nowhere good to grind. And we can't go past Saffron, so we have to take on Sabrina. She says if we lose, we have to play with her. Luckily we win against her Abra, but like Brock, it acts like we lost. We got sent into her dollhouse and rescued by her dad, and he says we can't challenge her again until we get a Ghost-type Pokemon. This unlocks Route 8, and we catch Rattata. This is a good route to train on, so I evolved Zubat and got everyone to level 31. In the Pokemon Tower we get Haunter, and can fight Sabrina again. This time is very different. Haunter disappears, so you're forced to fight her newly evolved Kadabra with only 5 Pokemon. I lead with Wartortle to bite it. Its Psybeam does almost half, so I switch out to Alakazam. Surprisingly, Psybeam does more than half to it, so I switch back into Wartortle hoping for a low roll Psybeam. Unfortunately, it got a high roll and took him down. I swapped Pidgeotto and used Wing Attack, doing a good bit of damage. My last hope was to Quick Attack. I didn't think it would knock it out, but it did, earning me my 4th gym badge. We also get a Silph Scope, with which we can catch a Ghastly. I put it and Krabby in my party, and leveled everyone up to 32, evolving those 2 in Ivysaur. Now we can go west to Celadon City. On the way there we catch Primeape, but it won't listen to us. To go in the Celadon gym, we must dress as a girl, based. I'm not going to fight Erica yet though, because I just got wrecked by the last gym leader. I go past Celadon and head through Diglett's cave, catching a Dugtrio on the way. On Route 9, I caught a Nidoran female. In Fuchsia, I got a Goodrod and fished up a Goldeen. I leveled Primeape up to 31, taught it Aerial Ace, gave it leftovers, and entered it into the P1 tournament. It's a fighting Pokemon tournament and we can only use 1 Pokemon. After the first fight, Primeape actually listens to us from now on. It was trivialized by Aerial Ace. The last guy asked if we want to give him our Primeape, which of course we're not doing. I figured now is the time to fight Erica. I lead with my highest level Pokemon, Pidgeotto. She leads with Tangela, which is the same level. I use Wing Attack, which does about a third, and she stun Spores. While I'm paralyzed, she sets up Ingrain, which is pretty annoying. I crit her, and she sends out Weepin' Bell, while I switch to Nidoking. I use a couple turns to fully heal Pidgeotto and peck it to death, it luckily missing Sleep Powder twice. She sent out Gloom and I swapped to Pidgeotto. Wing attacked at almost half, but this Gloom has Sludge Bomb. It did over half to Pidgeotto, so I switched to Nidoking. It crit Giga Drained, taking it down. No! Now it's back to full health, so I send in Venusaur and put it to sleep. I switch in Alakazam and Psybeam it, taking it down to red. It wakes up on the first turn, but I got a lucky Confuse and it knocked itself out. These gym battles are rough. I started leveling up Dugtrio and realized I forgot to do the power plant. I went in there and my first encounter was Grimer. I should have used a Repel because I could have got Magnemite after catching the Static Muck. Oh well. Pidgeotto evolved and everyone else got up to level 34. The last thing we can do before Koga's gym is catch some Pokemon in the Safari Zone. The Warden threatens to shoot us if we don't pay. The way I do the Safari Zone is that you can get one encounter per area. The first one I fish and get Poliwag. The second one I get Rhyhorn. The third is Tauros, but it runs away. For the fourth area, nothing was appearing in the grass for some reason, so I decided to save it for when I get the Super Rod. Before fighting Koga, I realized TMs are infinite, so I decked out my Pokemon with moves. Inside Koga's gym was a static Voltorb encounter. Koga leads with Venomoth. I thought he was going to lead with Golbat, so I led with Dugtrio. It has Rock Tomb. The Venomoth outright one-shot Dugtrio, no crit necessary. I switched to Pidgeot and took it down easily. When the Golbat came out, I switched to Kingler. It Confuse Ray and Kingler hit itself, then it Poison Fanged and poisoned, taking it down to only 8 HP. I switched back to Pidgeot and broke through Parafusion to Secret Power it to death. This gets us the 6th badge, and it's time to grind again. I put Voltorb in my party and evolved it, and got everyone up to level 35. After going across Cycling Road, a Lapras appeared and took us to the North Pole, where we caught a seal. Back in the Kanto region, a guy wants to send us into the computer. There's flashing lights in there. I'm warning you now in case you're epileptic. It sucks in here. You have to randomly guess which way to go on the arrow tiles, and if you mess up, you get warped to the beginning. If you use speed up in here and you're epileptic, I'm sure you'll give yourself a seizure. In case you want to do this yourself, you're supposed to go up, down, left, right. After seeing a Pikachu, my game froze and I had to reset the game. I caught a Horsey with the Good Rod, and then I found a lost Eevee. I could return it to its trainer, or I could just steal it for myself and put it in the box, which is what I do. I also found a Bellsprout and find a static Snorlax. Some old guy says it's his, but that doesn't stop me from catching it. So much stealing Pokemon on this route. I caught it in a netball. I find a circus tent and this guy hypnotizes me into catching him an Executor. It's in a forest nearby. It's the same route as the Bellsprout, but it's fine because I'm not going to be using it. The game won't let us progress without catching it. I run out of balls trying to catch it, and run all the way back to Celadon to stock up and try again. Neon Town has a game corner, so I note that in case we need it later. In Grandpa Canyon, I catch a Cubone and a static Aerodactyl. I also get the Togepi egg, which I deposit in the PC because Misty will steal it if you don't. You can get the National Pokédex by calling Professor Oak here, so it's good in case I need to use Crobat. There's a Pokémon League testing center on this route where we have to fight a guy 3 times, and it gives us random Pokemon to fight him with. At least it's supposed to do that, because after the first fight I still have the same Pokemon, including 2 that are knocked out. Then the game crashed really hard. I couldn't get out of the program. It wouldn't even let me Control-Alt-Delete. I had to hard reset my computer. After making up a little lost progress, we fight Butch and Cassidy and take a boat to Cinnabar Island. Blaine will only fight us if we deposit 3 of our Pokemon in the PC, so I chose Kingler, Pidgeot, and Primeape. Kingler swept him, but almost got horn drilled, which was scary. After beating Blaine, an old man gave us a raft which lets us surf. I went back to Cerulean City and caught a Tentacool. I run all the way back to Cinnabar and surf to Rock Tunnel, where I catch a Machoke. And you know where it exits? Cerulean City. I got a Super Rod from Misty and went back to the Safari Zone hoping to catch a Dratini. I found Psyduck instead. Lame. I went back through Mount Moon before I thought, the 8th gym is next. I should grind. I got everyone to level 50 because that's the level the gym leader's Pokemon are. The gym leader isn't Giovanni, but Jesse and James using Giovanni's Pokemon. They lead with Machamp, so I used Alakazam and one-shot it with Psychic. Their next Pokemon is Kingler, so I switched to Electrode and one-shot it too. Last Pokemon was Rhydon, so I switched to Venusaur and one-shot it. Easy. Team Rocket uses their own Pokemon after Giovanni's, which did marginally better. Weezing's Explosion is scary. After getting the 8th badge, we can surf south of Pallet Town and go to New Island, where the first movie takes place. Our raft breaks on the way, so we can't surf anymore. We go underwater and catch a Staryu. Once we get to the island, we fight the other trainers and then Mewtwo. You're actually supposed to lose against Mewtwo because his Pokemon are super overleveled. We put up a good fight, but couldn't beat his last Pokemon. I go by Tyranitar Tube rules, and say that if you're supposed to lose a battle, you don't have to count your Pokemon as dead. After going through all the dialogue, I went back to the game corner to purchase a Dratini and some TMs. Now it's time to head west from Viridian City to Victory Road. On the way there, I caught an Onix at Mount Hideaway, and once inside, I caught a Geodude. I cleared out the Cave of Trainers and got to the Pokémon League gate. The area guard says the Pokémon League hasn't started yet and won't let me through. This is a bug, so I used a walk through walls cheat to go around him. Team Rocket appeared, and like an idiot, I sped through the text that said Weezing was using Destiny Bond and got Kingler killed. I was so worried about Explosion that I wasn't paying attention. That sucks. I put Graveler in my party and leveled it up to 54, but it didn't evolve, so I switched to Cubone and evolved it into Marowak. After getting everyone to 54, I started the Pokémon League. You have to deposit all your healing items in the PC and only use 3 Pokemon per match. The first trainer is Mandy, and he leads with an Exeggutor. I lead with Pidgeot and take him out with Aerial Ace. He then switched to Seadra, and I switched to Venusaur, one-shotting it with Giga Drain. His last Pokemon is Golbat. I switched to Electrode, and it's the same story as Seadra. Next up is a kid named Kevin. He leads with Electrode, so I go with Marowak. A couple Earthquakes take down the ball, and he goes into his own Cubone. I switch to Venusaur and Giga Drain it. His last is Nidorino, which goes down to Alakazam Psychic. Third up is Pete Pebbleman. He leads with Graveler, which we annihilate with Venusaur. Second comes out Cloyster, which is easily defeated by Electrode. Last is Arcanine, and I switch to Marowak. It used Sunny Day, but luckily never went for a fire attack. Flamethrower or Fire Blast would have probably taken Marowak out. A few Earthquakes and Arcanine is down. The fourth Pokemon League fight is against Jeanette, which is the last fight Ash won in the anime. She has Beedrill, Scyther, and Bellsprout, and I sweep her with Pidgeot. We are interrupted by a Team Rocket fight, and I lose Marowak to Weezing's Explosion. After the fight, to not miss the next battle, we have to fly with Pidgeot to the match. This fight is against Richie, and the odds are stacked against us. Your Pokemon's health is artificially lowered before the fight. He leads with Butterfree and us with Electrode. A Thunderbolt just barely doesn't take it out, and Butterfree puts us to sleep. Luckily, they couldn't take my Pokeflute from me, so I used it to wake up Electrode. If the game's gonna cheat, so can I. After Butterfree goes down, he brings in Charmander, and I go for Primeape. I use Earthquake, which brings him to red, and he uses Flamethrower, which brings me to red as well. I finish him with another E-Quake, and he swaps to Pikachu, us swapping to Venusaur. It goes down to 1 Earthquake, and we win the fight without any deaths. We have now officially passed where Ash lost the Pokemon League. I will declare that the Nuzlocke is now over, and we won it, but I will continue the Pokemon League as far as we can go as a bonus. The reason I say the Nuzlocke is over is because you're not actually supposed to beat the next trainers. They have an unreasonable level spike, the champion's Pokemon going up into the 80s. You're supposed to lose to Richie, and once you lose, you can't challenge the league again. There's the Orange Islands after, but they're not finished, so I won't bother with them. To replace Marowak, I'm gonna train up Rhyhorn. Now, the next battle in the Pokemon League is Asunta. She leads with Drowsy, which I Shadow Ball with Alakazam. Number 2 is Venomoth, which goes down to a few Aerial Aces from Pidgeot. Up third is Rhydon, so I switch to Venusaur. I use Giga Drain, which doesn't knock it out, and she hits with Horn Drill. Good thing this isn't Nuzlocke rules anymore. I finish Rhydon with Primeape, and she sends out Tentacool of all things, which actually takes 2 Thunderbolts from Electra to knock out. Her 5th Pokemon is Raticate, so I switch back into Primeape. Brick Break does just over half, and she goes for Toxic for some reason, allowing us to knock her out. Last up is Ivysaur, which goes down to 1 hit from Alakazam. The next trainer is Melissa. She leads with Porygon, and I lead with Electrode. I use a couple Thunderbolts, and she crits us with Tri-Attack, knocking it out. I finish it off with Primeape. Now she's bringing in her own Primeape, so I switch to deal with it with Alakazam. Her next Pokemon is Flareon, so I bring in Rhydon. Flareon is faster and burns Rhydon, so our attacks are weakened. She switches into Pinsir with Baton Pass, so I Fire Blast it and do some good damage with a crit. On the next turn, she switches into Flareon, which is immune to Fire Blast, and Rhydon goes down to the burn. I finish it with an E-Quake from Primeape, and she brings back in Pinsir, which I finish with Pidgeot. Her last Pokemon is Golem, which I easily defeat with Venusaur. The final trainer in the tournament is a Dragon Tamer, Gideon. He leads with Seadra, and I lead with Electrode. Thunderbolt surprisingly one-shots it, and he brings in Kangaskhan. I cross-chop it twice with Primeape. Next up is Fearow, which I beat with Electrode. Its next Pokemon is Charizard, and I Rock Blast it with Rhydon. Number 5 is Onix, easily defeated by Venusaur. Its last Pokemon is Dragonair, so I send out Rhydon. It keeps going for Flamethrower for some reason, so I fire off a bunch of Ice Beams and actually beat it that way. Now that we are ranked number 1, we can challenge the Elite Four. And how does that go? Well, her Pokemon are level 80, so our first 4 get swept by her Dugong, and the last 2 finished up by Jinx. So yeah, we did not beat the Elite Four, but we did beat our Nuzlocke challenge. Thanks for watching. This was a nice change of pace from my normal New Vegas stuff. If you liked this video, feel free to give me suggestions on other Pokemon ROM hacks to do. Like and subscribe for more videos like this.